Bertie, it's Sunday the 14th of April 2024, which means it is time for... Yes, time for Wank of the Week. And this week, we're not gonna talk local. Do you know what I mean? Because I think it's unfair. We have no monopoly on wankers here. No, it's a very universal concept. So this week I decided to talk about the billionaire and Tory donor, Lord Ashcroft. Now, Lord Ashcroft recently published in which he's attacked Labour Deputy Leader Angela Rayner, accusing her of tax irregularities regarding a property she'd owned well over a decade ago. Now, knowing that nobody's going to buy his book, the accusations were then serialised in the Tory rag, the Mail and the Mail on Sunday. Now, initially the claim was Rayner was a hypocrite because she had bought her home under the Right to Buy scheme, even though Labour now opposed that same scheme. That didn't really stick. So they moved on to accusing her of not paying enough property gains tax when she sold the initial property. That also failed to gain traction as the amount concerned was a derisory £1,000 and improvements she had done in the property had probably cancelled that out. So getting desperate, the attack has now moved on to the accusation she didn't put down her proper address on the electoral register. So, capital crime, having a mistake like that. Today, we learn that Greater Manchester Police, no less, no doubt due to Tory pressure, are to start an investigation. Even though they haven't specified what in God's name they're going to investigate. I'm pretty sure the citizens of Manchester will be thrilled at this news, considering the mountain of unsolved murders, robberies, and other serious crimes that grow by the day. Now, all this because a billionaire Tory donor, Lord Ashcroft, decided to launch an attack on the deputy leader of the Labour Party ahead, would you believe this? Could this be possibly the reason? Ahead of a general election the Tories know they're going to lose. Could it be? Possibly. They want Rayner out of the picture before Labour takes over. Like, perversely, she should take some comfort knowing she is the target of the attack and not her boss, Keir Starmer. Well, they know that he's a Tory light, so they've nothing to fear from Keir. The Tories hate Rayner because she's working class, she doesn't speak with a proper accent, but worst of all, she is actually a socialist. And she may force them same billionaire tax avoiders to finally pay their taxes. Which brings me neatly back to Lord Ashcroft. Because let's have a wee look at the Lord. You see, unlike Claire Rayner, the Lord knows all about UK taxation, or at least how to avoid paying it. Having been made a Lord due, no doubt, to his many philanthropic adventures, mainly giving the Tory party millions of quid, he had promised at that time to renounce his non-dom status as a citizen of Belize and pay all his UK taxes. But in what subsequently became known as the Paradise Papers, he was exposed as a liar. He continued to claim non-dom as a citizen of Belize. So here we have a story where a billionaire Tory donor who's avoided paying millions in tax outs a Labour MP who at worst is accused of possibly not paying £1,000 property gains tax. Well, that seems fair, doesn't it? Yet, all of our major news outlets continue to push this non-story, instigated by a non-dom tax avoider. Or at least until this morning, when on the Laura Kunsberg Sunday morning show, good old John O'Farrell called them all out on their nonsense, saying this.
John, we'll be talking later about what effect this has on politics here or not. But as someone connected to the Labour Party, I want to ask you, though, about Angela Rayner and about the rumbling row about this. And clearly the Conservatives have been trying to pull strings here and keeping this in the public eye and in the newspapers. And some of the newspapers are very hungry for a story like this. What do you think, though, of how the party's handled it? Because some people on the inside of the party think they could have nipped it in the bud a long time ago if she'd been more proactive at the beginning.
I think this is such a ridiculous non-story. And when we're sitting here and we've got, war in Ukraine, war in the Middle East, and we're talking about something that happened that long ago, something that the police could only prosecute within the first year after it happening. This was in the FT yesterday, that if the police were going to take any action about these alleged financial misdemeanors, that would have had to be in the first year. So everyone in Manchester right now, I hope all the crimes that you've endured have been sorted, because the Manchester police are spending time on this. And Laura, I have to say, for you as a broadcaster, for the BBC here to keep spending time on this and to have Yvette Cooper sit here and come and talk about violence against women and girls, and that to take second place to this bit of gossip that the Mail has pushed and pushed and pushed, and for the BBC to have to say, we have to cover this because the Mail have keep covering it, and so it becomes a story, and it's not a story just because the Mail says it's a story.
I think a lot of viewers would...
I doubt John's going to get invited back on the Kunzberg show anytime soon. But thank God for somebody saying the most obvious thing. But you know what's even more galling, apart from the tax-avoiding billionaire calling out Labour MP? At this same time, the same week, a top Tory MP called William Wragg, no less than the vice chair of the Conservative 1922 committee, was discovered to have been compromised in an online honey trap. Having met a man on Grindr and having passed on intimate photographs of himself to that individual, he was subsequently pressurised into handing over the details of over a dozen other MPs. Now, the security implications of this are clear. Yet initially the Tory party surrounded the wagons, with Chancellor Jeremy Hunt saying that Wragg's apology had been both courageous and fulsome. Fulsome? Fulsome? There is nothing fulsome about a man willing to hand over the personal details of his colleagues in an attempt to get himself off the hook. So let's compare and contrast, shall we? We have the non-story of Angela Rayner, who may or may not have made a mistake involving £1,000, or maybe worse, even put the wrong address on the electoral register. And on the other hand, we've the story of a top Tory MP involved in one of the worst and egregious breaches of security in parliamentary history. And which story continues to dominate the news? You've guessed it. There's a lesson to be learned here, boys and girls, a very important lesson. And that is, we can no longer blindly trust even our beloved Beeb. Levers are pulled and the news is moved from a real story to a contrived non-story. And in this instance, that lever was pulled by a citizen of Belize who refused to pay tax in the UK. So remember, don't just read the news, read behind the news. And always ask yourselves this one simple question. Who does this story benefit? For the story around Rayner benefits nobody but billionaire, tax-avoiding Tories and their cronies in the media.